Oh, what's up, guys? Let's talk. Video games. The thing your mom told you rot your brain if you play too much? My mom certainly told me that. Dating back to the 1970s and the release of the age-old classic Pong, video games began to take a front seat in the ever-changing culture, and have honestly risen to astronomical heights in terms of popularity, company prosperity, and opportunity. One of the more popular genres within this video game culture, the sports games. But what exactly fuels this incredible rise to the brim of society for the video game industry? And is it driven by the game makers? Or are the consumers and players responsible for the booming sports game industry? Let's take a look. It is common knowledge in many biological studies that humans love control. In fact, according to the National Library of Medicine, the perception of control is not only highly desirable, but it's also psychologically and biologically a necessity. In fact, individuals exercise control over the environment by making choices. These choices include complex and emotionally salient decisions that may occur only once in a lifetime, such as deciding which college to attend, deciding which car to buy. Actually, people buy more than one car. However, these choices also include basic perceptual decisions that occur hundreds of thousands of times every single day, such as what to eat for breakfast, what to eat for lunch, and what to eat for dinner. Man, I am hungry. Although much of our behavior is elicited by environmental cues and may be below the state of explicit awareness, all voluntary behavior involves choice nonetheless. Thus, to choose is to express a preference and to assert the self. Each choice, no matter how small, reinforces the perception of control and self-efficacy, and removing choice likely undermines this adaptive belief. So here's where we bring video games back into that mix. For the purpose of a clear thought process, I've divided the games we will be exemplifying into 3 tiers of control. We begin by looking at games such as Injustice, Mortal Kombat, or Mario Kart. In these games, control can be seen at mediocre level of usage by the game developers, giving players the options of how to upgrade your characters, as well as give us control of them in fights or races, and when to use their special moves and powers during the main objective of the game. However, these games, I believe, can be thought of as controlled more by the game itself, allowing for limited control with no real defined objective, besides beating your opponent, finishing the race, stuff like that. We continue by looking closer at games such as Disco Elysium, Batman Arkham Knight, and Pokemon. These games share a common theme where essentially the player is pitted against the computer and control is relinquished more from the side of the game itself, although not entirely. In the beginning of Disco Elysium, players are given the control to customize their characters with traits that either reflect them as a person, give them certain advantages in the game, or both. Once the game begins, it becomes clear that player control is a big part of the game, seen through the open world concept, ability to make choices in pretty much any order you choose, and yet the player is still guided by certain objectives, tasks, and boundaries which might not be unlocked unless a previous action is taken. I know this is true in Batman Arkham Knight as well, and Pokemon, when you are required to beat a villain or beat a gym leader in order to progress further into the game. This theme of control with lesser limitations applies equally to all 3 of these games, and any other game which falls into this tier that I call the increased player control gaming, as opposed to what our last tier was. The 3rd tier of control in games is classified, or can be classified, as full control, and can be found in games such as Call of Duty, Fortnite, and Apex Legends. In the multiplayer arenas, player control is through the roof, with these games offering the options to customize characters, skins, and loadouts, as well as offering an open-world concept where you, as a player, are pitted against players with the exact same options that you are. Unless you didn't buy the DLC or the limited time packs for $99.99, then it's a different story. Your movements, rotation patterns, shot selections, and ability usage are completely up to the player, only controlled by the infamous Storm, which ensures a game doesn't last an hour because someone is hiding in a bush and no one can find them. I believe that sports games can be categorized into this tier. Let me explain why. In a game such as, let's take FIFA 2023 or Madden 2023, players are given the option to select whichever team they would like to play as in quick play. Quick play is essentially when you have a buddy over and you want to prove who's the best at FIFA, so you go into quick play and you play one-on-one. If you are playing alone, perhaps a career mode is more your speed, where players take the reins of a team as a general manager and are able to draft or sign players of your choice, allowing for the negotiating of deals, contract shaping, all that fun stuff. The third option is one of the most popular in both games. Playing alone, a player is able to start with a base team of low-level players, requiring them to work their way up, playing games, and earning credits. From there, new players can be purchased, or packs can be opened, or players can be earned from special rewards, and substituted at will to make the starting lineups better. Within this feature is another mode called Draft Mode, where players are able to select their favorite player from a selection and assemble the best team possible. Gameplay revolves around total control of the entire team, and essentially there are no skill checks, necessary objectives, or limitations on gameplay. Players are free to play however they desire, use characters however they please, and progress at whatever rate they're able to. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any clips of this because ESPN doesn't let you access it, but fantasy football can also fall into this realm, where a group of however many people, generally from 4 to 12, draft NFL players to play on a fantasy football team. And while for some people this is a form of sports gambling or sports betting, depending on if you put money on it, it can also be seen as a game where a person has full control over the roster of their fantasy football team. And I believe that this is also just kind of an exemplification of putting fantasy into reality, because obviously some people in the off-season for the NFL really want to see a player go to a certain team. Well, with this fantasy football function, you can now take players that you would want to see all play all together and put them on your fantasy roster. This can also fall into the tier of full control, as there are really no limitations to what you can do with a fantasy football league. Thanks for checking out my video. If you want more content, make sure to sub to